Hello and welcome to another episode of The Advantage. I'm your host, Michael Fiddle. Today is Tuesday, October 17th, and on today's show, I'm joined by Austen Vernon. We are bringing back AV now that the NBA season is also back, and we each came up with our own starting five topics we are looking for or forward to at the start of this NBA season. Of course, today's episode is brought to you guys by Fantasy Basketball International. Make sure to go check out their website, their rankings, and their Discord channel. I'm sure everyone listening to this episode who plays fantasy basketball is in the middle of draft season. I know I am, and I know I'm leaning on their experts, their resources, and their rankings. So be sure to check those out. Let's start the show.
I'm the type to get shit done. You the type to observe. March Madness on my speakers, but today's November 23rd. Got something loud in the blunt, yeah. Don't say what I want, yeah. Probably somewhere sunny getting tan. Foreign women in the sun, yeah. That's all that I need. That's all that I need. That's all that I need. Got my brothers with me. Got my brothers with me, and my mama's healthy. That's all that I
need. AV, welcome in and welcome to the first ever show of you joining me on the New Advantage podcast and on the Fantasy Basketball International channel. What do you think of that intro video?
I was going to say the new intro bangs. I'm glad you asked. I didn't know that there was a new intro song, and I'm just sitting here. I'm not on the screen yet, bopping along. I like the new intro. It's good to be back.
Shit done. You type to observe.
Oh man, I'm pumped about the intro. I'm pumped about basketball starting. If I knew that my most recent promotion meant I had all this homework to come with my 5 topics, I might have questioned it, but I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Let's go. I forgot to give you a promotion for all the new listeners who are tuning in on the Fantasy Basketball International stream. Of course, I'm Mike, but joining me today is Austen. He is probably the most regular guest we have for NBA topics, so you will become used to him. He's one of my best friends always. I'm going to see him next week at my brother's wedding. Looking forward to that. Maybe we'll talk about that at the end of the episode. But we just have hours and hours long phone conversations generally. So we decided once I started getting into content to start recording them. So when I bring on AV, we're just talking basketball. We're just sitting back talking hoops for an hour. And today's was just a fun, like, he called me a week ago and was like, are we going to, we want to talk some NBA? And I was like, let's schedule a pod and actually record it. So AV, normally we give you a promotion every time. We'll start that on the new stream next time because I'm not prepared for it this time, and I don't want to throw a BS title at you. Best man, incoming groomsman.
Wow.
So I think for today's episode, like I said, the homework I gave you, the assignment that you got was to come up with 5 topics that you are looking for or forward to at the start of this NBA season. Let's just jump right into it. Skip all the fluff. And I'll hit you with my first one.
Yep.
It just has to be Wemby. And I know it's been blanket talked about all summer long. I haven't, so I'm going to hop on and talk about it right now. This is the certified alien entering the NBA. And it's everyone who wants to hit me with the bull walked so Wemby could run, like miss me with all of that. Bull was just cut at 23 and re-signed for a minimum in Phoenix. This is like the highest prospect we have ever seen since potentially LeBron or Wilt or AD or whatever. This is probably the most valuable piece in the NBA immediately, besides maybe Jokic and Luka. Like, this is supposed to be so generational and something like we've never seen before. And then if you just watch the highlights, I mean, the Spider-Man steal in preseason, the freaking spin moves to the lefty layups, the step backs, looking like a young KD, and then the ability to just move through the lane and then put it in the basket and just dunk it automatically. It's truly something I've never seen before. And that is absolutely the number one thing I'm looking forward to this season is the emergence and the splash that Victor Wembanyama is going to be.
Yeah, the crazy reach, like Space Jam type thing that we've never seen before. It's another level, but it reminds you of when Giannis first started doing that. When you were like, oh, if this fool can dribble and get up and down the court and bang like that, how is he even stoppable? And now you just added, 6 inches, and I don't even know how many wingspan inches to him. I think
a milky jumper.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, Giannis didn't have that, and he doesn't have that now.
Still doesn't.
I like Wembanyama's jumper. I have seen, that his efficiency numbers are down. I don't know if it matters so much, given that just the ability to get to your jumper and not be blocked regardless is so valuable. But tell me what you think about this. I think that he's going to be saved by highlights this year, but because his numbers, minutes, effect on wins will be so kind of below expectations, given how high expectations are, I think people are just going to have to rely on the highlights.
So I go one of two ways with this. First of all, I love the fact that you just brought up the highlight component. The reason why John Morant has emerged into the superstar of this generation is because there's no one more fun to watch in 7-second clips than John Morant. And Vic is going to fill that space immediately and then probably expand on it because it's going to be things we've never seen. And he's going to be the Vine, Twitter, quick reels, YouTube shorts. He is going to absolutely dominate those spaces. I actually am not. I'm was originally like Spurs aren't trying to win. Yeah. I keep backing up my take on this. The Spurs might be freaking good. I know his jumper's not efficient, but he opens up so much space with the geometry of basketball and him being able to play literally anywhere. The Spurs are scoring just so fast. Are they going to be kind of Kings-like, where they just start racking up wins because offense travels in the regular season?
I would be surprised, but then impressed that you've called this, just given how hard the West is and how few pieces they have. So they're pretty committed, I think, to not overworking Wembanyama. So that's going to mean
and not prioritizing wins.
Exactly. So it's all about his future development, which I agree with. I'm happy he went to a real organization so they can take care of him and properly develop his talent. I think it means he misses so many games and he plays so few minutes compared to what people want and expect that even if the rest of the team was decent, and they're not, the rest of the roster is the worst roster in the West after him, unless I'm forgetting someone. And they don't have anyone who can do anything.
They're a worse roster than Portland. Maybe. Houston, they're probably worse than too. Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting to see.
Yeah, Houston will be trying harder, more talent. Yeah.
I think it's going to land somewhere in the middle. And speaking to people who are listening to this podcast a week before the NBA season started about things that they're looking forward to at the start of the NBA season, I'm going to put them into the NBA nerds and like non-casuals like myself, where I think he's going to exceed the expectations of like real NBA fans who kind of have realistic views on knowing what the Spurs organizationally are doing, knowing that they're not going to want to overload him. He's going to exceed those expectations, probably underwhelm from just like a public standpoint, which thinks he just should enter the league as a superstar. It wouldn't surprise me if he's very much featured at All-Star Weekend. Like, obviously rookie sophomore game, but if he's like a replacement All-Star, I wouldn't be too surprised.
Yeah, I mean, again, you have no argument for me there. I know the NBA is prepared to market him and get the most out of him, and I'm sure All-Star Weekend is part of that. I'm sure they have things we haven't even heard of yet ready to go with him. But I don't think it's going to matter that much in terms of wins and stats. I do think, like we've been talking about, like it'll be like you talked about with Ja, but maybe even closer to like what we saw with Zion, where he was like pretty much a highlight reel exclusive. And we're like, I don't even know what to expect on the court. Have we seen him in a real NBA setting? So I think as we figure that out, just seeing him sort of, SWAT block from outside the key on the other side and like dunk it. The dunk on what's his name, Thomas Bryant, when he looked over to the bench and was like, what can I do about that, was nuts. He just reached over this gentleman who's used to being the biggest guy on the court and is now, wingspan wise, probably -7, -8 inches. It was crazy.
Let me ask you quickly last on this topic, and then we'll move on to the next one. From a fantasy basketball perspective, is he going to be propped up with like, how do you judge? Like, I don't know. I'm so confused on how to judge Victor. Do I prop him up in the efficiency stuff because we're hearing the inefficiency of the jumper, but he's just going to attack the rim and be able to just put the ball in the basket that it'll hold his field goal percentage north of the 50%? That should be reasonable for a big, high volume big. Is his minutes going to be, is his games played going to be enough to sustain from a totals aspect, even if like his stat counting numbers are there? Where the hell do you draft Wemby in fantasy?
Yeah, there's almost no way that you can get a value on Wemby in most leagues because, like we were talking about, he's going to miss too many games and not play enough minutes. I agree that his blocks will still be high. I think that his stats will sort of be unique, but I think at times his field goal percentage will be low if they really do let him go to that step back a bunch, which is sick, but he'll miss. But I think more importantly, you need more minutes and more consistent reliability, and he's going to go as high as like the third round. And I think if you want Wemby, go get yourself Chet in the fifth because you'll get a lot of what we're talking about that'll be fun. Maybe more minutes now, maybe not. Maybe they're equally cautious, but I think better value for what you're looking for. Not saying that Chet's going to be the future equivalent of Wemby.
Hit me with your first topic, thing you're looking forward to this season.
Yeah, it's a combo. I guess what I'm looking to see is did the Bucks playoff chances go down by setting this trade in motion to actually send Drew to Boston? But what I want to do first is how did the Blazers get so much value from Dame? Like he's a small guard, he's aging, and we love Dame. And he's on a crazy contract that's going to be paying him ridiculous things. I thought that he'd already said he only wanted to go to Miami. Teams didn't even know. I know that they checked first, but teams didn't even know if he would stay there, let alone the Bucks don't know if he wants to stay there long term. I know they checked in. Look what they're going to get, the Blazers, from this once now they've traded Drew also. It's a haul. How did they get a haul?
My one, they did incredibly well. Joe Cronin did really well holding firm, still sending Dame to a place that he can win and pair with Giannis and check all the boxes of doing right by Dame, doing right by the organization, doing well for the fans, setting up the team and the current roster to bring in a veteran guard and then two young bigs with the current roster construction and then add picks to it. They did extraordinarily well. The one thing where I'll just splash some cold water on this is, from my understanding, the Nurkic-Ayton swap component of it was agreed to weeks before. So if we're only looking at the Dame component, then don't include Ayton in it because the Blazers would have gotten Ayton for Nurkic if they still hadn't traded Dame today. That trade would be done.
I mean, I think that more speaks to Ayton's situation in Phoenix. And they thought
does.
if we want to win, we have to get someone who's not a cancer, but who is the least wants to be here and the least bought in of everyone here. I mean, look, I think that's a great trade. Obviously, looking forward for Portland, too, even if I don't think Ayton's a max player with salary cap and what they have available, given they're getting rid of everyone. It makes sense. He's young. He wants to grow there. I think even without them, they got so many picks and stuff for Dame. I didn't know what they were going to get for him. I obviously, it was a unique situation, but you could not have told me that this was going to be the haul. I didn't know the Blazers were this capable of an organization. I thought that sort of Dame and the Blazers were going to butcher this together, but alas.
Let me ask you one last question.
Yeah.
And we don't know if this was a realistic possibility, but I follow trade rumors like they make me go from 6 to midnight. So let's talk about the one thing that kept being floated out there. If it wasn't Miami, would they just trade him straight up for Karl Anthony Towns? If you were Joe Cronin, would you have rather gotten Cat or the haul that you did?
Wow. I mean, it has to speak to his motivation. Does he want to sell some tickets and win some games now, or does he want to go all future? I think that Cat by himself becomes better than what we've seen recently. If you just give Cat the ball on offense, even though his defensive deficiencies and some of his problems will still be there, you're just going to get so much more out of him. You're going to see the kind of the freak he was when he was telling people he was the best big man shooter of all time. I don't know. I think I'm future. I think there's no chance to win right now. I don't know if Cat stays there long term. He's sort of a volatile person to build around from a culture standpoint too. Give me all the picks. Just let me look towards the future.
I'm personally keeping my house and condos and apartments on Cat Island, so
respect.
I would have taken the Cat side of the deal. I think we were mocking the other night on the phone together, and I was very pro Cat in the second round. So I'm a buyer on the Karl Anthony Towns downturn that's taken. I think that's crazy. I think if the Timberwolves are actually crazy enough to trade, like, that would be so stupid. If I was the Timberwolves, and what's his name? Tim Connolley is the new GM there who came over from Denver recently, and Calvin Booth stayed in Denver and took over. So if I was Tim Connolley, what I would do is I would sit Cat and I would sit Ant down in a room and say, look, guys, we tried. We tried to bring in Gobert, which we thought would, cover up some deficiencies, add in some defense and rebounding, not clog up the spacing, but we fucked up. And in turn, we're going to get rid of Gobert. We understand we're going to sell him for pennies on the dollar. We understand we probably lost some picks in the process. We clearly lost some picks in the process, and it's going to be harder to rebuild. But trust us, we will do it. We will spend, and we will do what it takes to get you guys another third piece and rebuild around the two of you. That's what I would do before covering my tracks, selling Cat, trying to regain picks, and then hope Gobert and Ant are a better fit on their own. If that's what I'm the
look, if I think that would be impressive to convince them that's would happen long term and they would win, but I think it'd be even more impressive to sell Gobert even for pennies on the dollar. I think the reason that people talk about potentially getting Cat out of there is you're like, okay, we need one of the two big men gone. I agree. I'm with you in the now and long term. Give me Cat. We both felt Gobert was overrated in a lot of ways. But you can't move Gobert, and Cat has some long-term value. People would want Cat. You could build around Cat. Like I might not take Cat. I might take the picks if I was the Blazers, but I might take Cat too. Like that would be sick in that situation. So I think that it's just so much easier to move Cat to build around Anthony Edwards. And then look, Gobert will still help you. It just sucks you gave up so much for him.
Shall we move on to topic number 2 from the Fids?
Yeah, what do you got?
I think this is going to be a fun one. It kind of relates to my Wemby one. It's just a general. I think this is the year where we get the changing of the guards. Like we get a new top 10 incoming this season. We are going into next season, no longer consider Durant, LeBron, Jimmy, Dame, Kawhi, Steph. Those guys are going to be taken over. The throne will be taken by the Lukas. By the Lukas, the Bookers, the SGAs, the Ant-Mans, Ja Morant. This is the year the guard changes. And finally, when we come into next year, someone can convince me that taking Jason Tatum over LeBron for a 1-year playoff stretch is a better idea. You have been so crazy to think, and I know every ranking puts Tatum 4th. That's absolutely asinine. I know I have a dog right here. Named LeBron.
Ronnie?
However, and I know I'm biased. However, it's just crazy to think that anyone would rather have Tatum on their team than LeBron. That changes after this year. This is the changing of the guards year.
Yeah, look, obviously we're not talking about like who you want to build around long term, blah blah blah. If we're just talking,
who are your guys for this playoff series?
I like the take that it'll be a changing of the guard year. The only you lost me when you're saying that both Durant and LeBron will both be out of the top 10. I am down for everyone to shift down. Everyone else you named, the Dames, I'm on board. To tell me. I mean, LeBron too, but to tell me that Durant wouldn't be a top 10 player when I know that the Suns are going to make a playoff run and he's going to be the best player on that team and you're going to see him in the playoffs, people might come out of next season saying Durant is the best again. That is the level he could be at the playoffs. But to not put him in the top 10 is hard.
You will go into next year. Yeah. You will go into next year, AV, saying Devin Booker is the main superstar in the Phoenix Suns. Durant is the best number 2 in the league.
Yeah, look, I think that would speak to how good I think Book is, both in the regular season and playoffs. And I do think he'll carry them more in the regular season. And I do think that what he did last year in the playoffs, both from a crazy efficiency volume combo standpoint, but also the fact that he defended hard and well in the playoffs would put him on par with that. But to me, if you're talking about Book on that level, Book is probably, 5th best in the league. And Durant has to still be top 10. LeBron, look, maybe LeBron falls off, but just mentally what he gives you, if he's still giving you, 80% of what we know LeBron can do on the court, and then also, a wizard, it would be hard for me, but you could be right.
Rank who you would want for one playoff run, like for 4 rounds of a playoff year, right? Yeah. LeBron, KD, Booker, Tatum. Rank all 4.
This year, who I want in the playoff
run? If it started tomorrow, the NBA playoffs, who would you want leading your team out of those 4? Rank them.
Again,
As I go to set a reminder to re-ask you this next year.
I know, but okay. Well, ask me it after the playoffs next year. So if everyone is healthy and doing well, and they all were there in the playoffs, give me Durant number one in the playoffs. I know it's crazy. I think most people would go Tatum, Book, or Durant, and then the other, and then LeBron right now. And give me Durant, LeBron, or Tatum. You can make the argument, and Book right below. And I love Book up there, but it's Durant first still. No one does what he does in the playoffs when he's at his max. He was the number one player coming off that Nets run, and not anything has changed.
The changing of the guard happens this year, AV. Hit me with number 3.
Okay. You know what? I'm going out of order here because we just did the changing of the guard, and I have sort of a similar one here. Is this the year that the future teams, aka Houston, Detroit, OKC, are finally playing competitive basketball? Because for a while we've been like, whoa, they're getting all the best draft picks of the last 3 years, maybe even longer if you're OKC. At a certain point, it's like they got to play, they got to win. So for one of them, it has to be this year. So I'm thinking, is this the year that all of them take that step forward? And I think if any of them, obviously OKC, people probably put like a step ahead. They'll probably be offended. I'm grouping them together, but that they were sort of in this group. But Houston is one who even last year people were like, oh, I don't think they'll make a deep playoff run, but they're going to win games. They're going to try hard, and they were, a disaster. Yeah, what do you got?
I have the Knicks on line 2 asking to be entered into this conversation with their 8 first-round picks and their growing organization that could strike any time. Do you think this is the year the Knicks make is it the Knicks in the East and OKC in the West that make that leap?
It's hard for me to put the Knicks in that category because the other teams have been so almost intentional about their like, we don't need to win. We're just going to amount picks and players. And the Knicks have not done that. I know that, from RJ at the 3 pick on.
They changed their philosophy to be not spend on aging stars, but just to slowly rebuild and hope stars see it and want to come join them.
Look, but because of the contract they got Jalen Brunson on, and because the fact that, Julius Randle's a two-face, and if he's actually the best version of himself, then they have him on a good contract too, which is crazy to say. It means that it's sort of easier to say, it's working out. They're doing this soft rebuild well with young picks, but I can't put them in that category. Maybe it's because I see them as the Knicks and we're too close to it, but when I'm asking about the future team, that's the Knicks have tried to be a now team forever, and they like calling them a future team is generous because they've just been a bad now team.
So are you saying this is the year where, I guess, can we throw the Pelicans in there?
Nope. I have the Pelicans in a different bucket too, because the Pelicans to me
Pelicans
have been
are in that Knicks Mavericks tier about teams that
they're more that Mavs Memphis. I know Memphis has done a lot more, but
it's the Orlando Magic in the East and it's the OKC in the West.
Orlando are in that tier,
or the Pacers.
Orlando is just the furthest behind or the worst of them, but and the Pacers are but that's the tier we're talking about, and a lot of those teams are sort of the Pacers entering that tier the last couple of years because they've been weird. Houston, Detroit, OKC, these teams have essentially tanked for like what feels like years. Are they going to be good this year? And are they going to be good? I don't even have a yes or no answer. I was more like, it's time to answer that question one way or another. Because if they're not good this year, then
I don't know the proper answer, but I will tell you, Oklahoma City and the over-unders win total 44.5. So if we're projecting them to go 45 and 39, that's
in a tough West, yeah.
Is that what it would be?
Yeah, I mean they finished the year kind of strong too.
45
they look
and
decent in that playoff run. You might have to give me the under on that. Sadly, I'm a believer, but not that much.
So one of mine was actually very similar to this, but I actually skipped those. Who are the teams that everyone's expecting to take a leap? And I said which team that no one's expecting to take a leap actually might. So I put Pacers, Magic, Pistons, Spurs, Rockets in a list. I put do the Knicks rattle off 50 wins? I've said, do the Cavs finally take the number 1 regular season spot? Do the Mavericks finally put it together and get a top 2 or 3 seed in the West? Like, these were the questions that I say, which team that's been either having no expectations actually puts some on themselves, or has expectations finally reaches? Do you like any of those teams to like finally do it this year? Mavericks, Cavs, Knicks?
I mean, I like those questions too, because I agree with you that it's like that you only talk about the all or nothing. You talk about the bottom teams that are going to like shoot up, or the people who can literally win a championship, and a lot of other gets ignored. I want to see the Cavs make that run. I think that would be a fun story, and it would mean that Donovan Mitchell had another great regular season, which, you know, at a certain point he's really cementing his legacy. He has to win in the playoffs, but has been so much better than I and a lot of people expected. I don't like the Knicks over there. Trying to think who else I forgot. I like the Mavs potentially, except that I think that they're not as focused on the regular season. I think the Mavs potentially could be really good, especially if Lively is what they need him to be in this sort of, you know, athletic, defend, follow the rules kind of center. But I don't think they're going to be gunning for that 1 or 2 seed. I think Kyrie probably misses games. Luka, I don't know how that works. Why?
I'm going to take
Which
the
of your list
opposite
do you
approach.
like?
I think the Mavericks have to gun for that 1 or 2 seed because of how catastrophic the end of last year was. And you can't be fooling around early season. The West is too deep, where if you're middle of the pack as a 4 or 5 seed at the All-Star break, a little injury at the end of the season or a little bad run can then knock you out or into the play-in tournament. Now it's 7, 8, 9, 10. I think the Mavericks are literally forced to try and do all that they can to emphasize the regular season this year.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in my mind, it's bigger that injury or whatever causes Kyrie and Luka to miss games dictates that they can't make a run at that. But if they
Right.
play all their games, I'm with you. I also like watching them. I would like them to make a run.
I just don't know if it's actually going to happen, or this is the year where Luka then says, like, maybe Dallas isn't for me.
Yeah. I mean, sort of on that topic of how many games will they play is another one I have on my list here is, will these new NBA rules curb load management? And also on top of the new rules, I assume Silver or whoever his henchman is these days had a memo or a conversation with all teams being like, look, we'll make the rules and we'll try and force your hand, but know that this is like beyond important to us. You have to play your all-stars or do it in a regular way. So my question is, will it actually have an effect? And if not, will this finally be when the NBA considers reducing the regular season? Because there might be no bigger issue than the fact that they just play too many games, and not just because people sit or get hurt. It devalues the games and it makes you feel like the regular season doesn't matter.
All right, I'm going to answer this in a few fold. I'm going to nail this answer.
Do it, baby.
1, yes. The NBA, the load management rules are going to curb load management a little bit because some of these stars want awards. They want all NBA to up their contract. They want to go like legend status and accumulate multiple awards. Embiid's been super outspoken about it. The one person that doesn't really talk about it that much happens to be Jokic. Giannis is outspoken about it. Like, all of them will want these awards. 2, who is the guy that is the NBA finally going to say this actually matters to us? Joe Dumars is the new Stu Jackson for the NBA. He's the new guy dishing out the Kiki Vandeweghe punishments. Stu Jackson, when we lived 5 minutes away from each other, Stu lived 5 minutes away from us as well.
Do you remember what his Peter Vesey given nickname was when he was the bad guy for the NBA? Inaction Jackson. No. So respect is due. I love Stu. I haven't seen the NBA dole out the hammer in a long time.
Well, Dumars just got on a call with all NBA teams and reporters and told them on the call the reason for the call. Windhorse just did a podcast last week about it. I found it very interesting. Go check it out. That they outwardly said the reason for these rules is twofold. 1, we need to make the regular season more important again. We are devaluing the fan experience and the local customer experience. 2 is they explicitly said it on the phone call that the new upcoming TV deal is a very large part of the reason why these rules are being in place, enforced, and everything. Previously, the NBA was inaction Jackson because they weren't seeing any bottom line loss from it. This is the year where we actually have stuff coming and new contracts up where if the players aren't playing that much, it's going to hurt the revenue deals. Players get a share of that revenue. It's the 51-49 split. So they're going to be motivated to do it too. On top of all the awards, they want to max out the money. I'm sure the players union is telling them that. Is it going to change anything about Kawhi Leonard? Who knows? Is it going to change anything about Jimmy Butler? Who knows? But I think like the majority of guys are going to play. I think AD is going to try and play more games. I think LeBron is going to try and play more games. I think that I don't know exactly who's going for it to pertain to, but I think like when they go to Cleveland, like everyone used to skip the game in Cleveland. Kyrie's played in Cleveland once since he left. He's had two games there every year when he's been in the East.
He hasn't played a lot of games, and I love Kyrie, but for all sorts of different reasons.
That's true too.
He hasn't been there. I love to hear that kind of everything is aligning to push them to play it and make the regular season matter.
And lastly, no, they are not going to reduce the games because they're adding more games. AV, there are two teams
with that tournament. That's
are playing 83.
Too. Yeah, so I'm thinking with the in-season tournament and the play-in games, that can give them a little baked-in reason to be like, look, well, of course we can reduce the games and not lose any TV money. It's pretty much the same game. Look, if they want to run the players into the ground with 82, that's fine as long as they make the regular season feel like it matters again. If to me and you, and we are addicted to basketball and we love the random league pass games on late at night where the teams are garbage, if those games don't even matter to us, what must people who are like more casual or just regular and basketball fans think about the regular season? Because it's a big drop off.
You want to hear my spin to this?
Yeah.
I think those are the only people you can convince the midseason tournament is actually meaningful and it's actually exciting.
So it's for them. Great. Like rope them back in.
That's the sneaky trick of what the midseason tournament is. And that was one of my questions. So we'll just move on to this one on my list.
Yeah.
Is who the fuck's going to care about the midseason tournament? And I just figured it out because my answer was absolutely no one until we just had this conversation. It's the people who are just starting to become basketball fans again once football ends and once the Super Bowl is being played and once it's like Christmas and the casuals are starting to get back in. Oh, wow, they're playing for this midseason tournament. That's let's gamble on it. Let's play DFS. Let's like whatever. That's going to get more people interested. Oh, these games are going to be more intense. Now, will the players actually care? We'll see. Will the load management rest rules, which are specifically designed to let you not rest in those group play games and in those tournament games, like there's way harsher penalties for resting in those spots. So the Stars are going to play in those group stage games and in the tournament games. And I think sneakily, it's going to do pretty well. I think it's going to be a little bit of like it might be like a 1 year kind of, I don't know what's the right word for this. Like, remember when the All-Star game was amazing aberration. Remember when the All-Star game was amazing
the Chris
a few
Paul
years ago?
Yeah, we talk about this. Yeah.
When what was it? The quarter scoring rules and the elimination point and all that stuff.
Chris Paul brought Elo in, and that year they tried so hard, and we were like, oh, it's all changed now.
And then it went right back. I do think we're going to get that first year aberration, that like new car smell, that new lust in a relationship kind of thing, where this year mid-season tournament actually is kind of exciting. Which then gets me to another point. Like there's some sneaky good odds for mid-season tournament winners. Do you think any team
already posted? Interesting.
Everywhere. You can bet on the tournament. You could bet on who's going to win their groups. You could bet on everything. So
that feels like such a wild card to me, because how do you know who's going to care and what they're going to feel about it?
They're all going to care.
So up in the air. Wow.
The rules force them to care. The rules force them to play the Stars in those spots. So inherently,
it forces them to play them. And I'm sure, and they
are
always,
these guys going to play but not care?
No. They
so
play.
Now let me go
care.
one step further. Now let me go one step further. There's 8 teams that make it from the group stage into the like finale play-in tournament, right? So, and then you start looking at the group stages, and the groups are divvied up by good teams and bad teams. For example, 76ers, Cavaliers, Hawks, Pacers, Pistons, Bucks, Heat, Knicks, Hornets, Wizards, Celtics, Raptors, Bulls, Nets, Magic. They're not the exact divisions that they are. They kind of should be. Like, if we're going to make NBA divisions count for something, it's so weird how it's different from there's still groups of 5 teams. Divisions are groups of 5 teams. There's still 3 in each conference. There's 3. It's the dumbest thing in ever that they don't just mimic divisions, but they're going to change over the course. This would be a cool way to make divisions matter more over time, is to make it divisions. Maybe they end up doing that. But for now, they're evenly balanced. And then you're forcing the stars to play in these games. And then 8 teams will end up emerging to be in the final tournament. Now, here's the kicker, AV. The shortest odds on the board, as in the favorite, the lowest odds that you would get is Bucks and Celtics, both 9.5 to 1. So simply, if you take the Bucks or the Celtics and they just advance into the tournament and they just win their group, which are the games where their stars are forced to play, and then they get to games where their stars are still forced to play, then they're going to be favorites in all these games. Then you just hedge it the other direction. There's so much value from a betting perspective in taking like Bucks and Celtics, especially in these Eastern Conference, both plus 950 to win the play-in tournament. I mean, preseason, the midseason tournament.
I'm sold. I
you follow all those numbers that I just said?
I do. I mean, I see what your logic is. I'm on board. It's hard for me to go beyond the fan thinking about, I'd rather talk about and think about what teams are going to be good in the playoffs and what their seeding is going to be. And this almost feels like a weird distraction. But I will say that the kid in me loves it because I always felt like with leagues, it felt so official and slow to change. And the fact that they're willing to make these sort of weird out of the box changes. I'm sure they're all money driven like everything else, but I don't want to be cynical. The fact that they're willing to add something as crazy as a midseason tournament is awesome. I hope they keep adding weird, awesome things. And if they don't work, bail on them. And if they do, you keep them. So good for them for being a progressive league.
I'm going to bet the Celtics right now plus 950, and I will tweet it out after the show. Go on to your next topic, AV.
Yeah, my Celtics have to do with my next topic because it's a little bit wishful thinking. Is this the year that we shift back to thinking that continuity matters like it did, in the 90s and before? I know that I don't want to be like an old person being like, basketball was better because I love basketball now. There's so much more talented, all that. But I think if we see teams like the Bucks and the Celtics, who are clear favorites, who had great teams last year that just weren't healthy in the case of the Bucks, and no excuse for the Celtics, and just couldn't cut it. And then they both improved their rosters, everyone would say, but still they shook things up in a way that, is a roll of the dice, if nothing else, even if you have more. If both of those teams regress or don't make it to the finals, and it's, the Heat or the Cavs or the Knicks or the Hawks or someone I'm not thinking of, Philly out of there. And on the West, you have Denver and Golden State and teams like that, which like they didn't make changes either. Our team's going to finally start thinking, maybe if we have good players, we just let them continue to gel and develop and not mix it up every year. Like Dame has to acclimate. Like 82 games is a long time, but he has that much time to figure it out before the playoffs.
I don't know. It's a great question. I would answer your question with another question. Aren't we coming off a year where we were just proving that continuity matters with the Nuggets winning and then FIBA with Team USA looking fucking catastrophic?
Interesting. I didn't even put that in the discussion. That is a classic example of continuity and how these teams are thrown together versus countries that practice and do that all the time.
It's this season plus next year's Olympics that we'll use to answer this question.
Yeah, I'm on board with that because I was already in this. I was agreeing with you in terms of Denver. I think the reason that we even have a chance for teams to make that argument and for it to show finally is because we're coming off like a legit continuity year where I know they got rid of Bones Highland and they made some tweaks, but really what they did is they believed in building around Joker and their coach and that Jamal Murray would get healthy and they just waited it out and then they won. Good for them.
The real answer is that NBA, as it has always and forever will be, is a copycat league. So because the Nuggets just won with continuity, every team is sitting at home thinking, well, maybe our guys will develop and we'll do it too. So, yeah, I think it makes for a better fan experience for sure.
Yeah, I'm on board with that.
Not
for sure. You want to
go your fifth every day?
And look, when it first started happening too, I was like, it's sick that players can move like this. I can't believe we're gonna get all-star teams and almost like video game draft style teams. But like, okay, now if I actually cared about a city and a franchise, which I really don't, I just love the NBA and the talent. If I cared about my city and franchise, I would start thinking, okay, can we get a coach that we believe in, a GM we believe in, an owner, and just sort of like build? And
it would be fun that way. Do you like the years where we had 5 straight Cavs versus, I mean, what was it, Cavs
Yeah,
Warriors,
yeah,
or LeBron versus Warriors, because one of them was on the last Heat one, and then 4 Cavs. So
with all due respect, no, I want the parity. I
you
want there
prefer
to
the
be.
last few seasons where we got Denver versus Miami, Celtics versus Warriors, Bucks versus Phoenix, and we saw 3 new teams in both conferences.
I do, and I'm saying that as someone who was a LeBron fan during these years, and because the Warriors were inevitably getting there, I wanted LeBron as the only chance to take them down to get there too. Those were some classic matchups. I get that, like that sells tickets. But I as a fan, I want more parity. It can be a mix. I could even go 2 years in a row with that rivalry back to back. It just at a certain point, it felt like no matter what, it was going to be those 2 teams in the finals. And then LeBron was maybe the 4th seed that year with the Cavs, where they stomped the East and went through, and he looked so good. And I was like, oh, like we thought, it actually doesn't matter. It has to be them too.
Do you have another topic?
Yeah, I got one more. So is Joker the best player? And then, you can make your argument for Giannis, Embiid, whoever, and they're right next to him, Tatum, whoever you want. Or is it Joker and then a teardrop break and then this next group of people? In that the way that you can run a team around Joker, the way he affects your offense, the way he doesn't hurt you defensively now and is improving there, is he so much better than the next best player that there's a tier break, and it's there that makes Denver actually one of the most talented teams in the league.
Is the question, is he or has he been?
Wow. Yeah. So how far back would you take it then?
Well, I mean, if we go if we go the last 3 seasons, then yes, he has been a tier above the NBA. If we're projecting forward, then I don't know. Like I
That's
would
right. You're
say
changing the guard.
right. Well, no, Jokic
I know.
part of the new group. I don't want to say the New Testament. I'm the least religious person ever to record a podcast. He's part of the new group that's taken over for sure. But yeah, I think it's a great question. I don't have an answer to it. I think everyone who's listening to this pod can think of the answer in their own head. If they want to reach out to me and tweet it to me at Fiddle's Picks, I could share it with Austin. But yeah, is Jokic the so clear number one from a fantasy basketball sense? Yes, above and a million miles away. If you're in an auction draft, is he worth $100?
I mean, so again, I've never been in an auction draft. As someone who loves basketball, I just started doing fantasy again as a kid the last few years, and it's so frustrating to me that I know the game so well and watch so much and suck at fantasy basketball. So I don't know what he goes for in an auction draft because I haven't prepared, and I'm sure I'm going to be terrible this year. And
haven't you gotten terrible? Are you saying you suck, or you just have gotten terrible injury luck?
No, I have had you know this because I've consulted with you on every year. I have had some bad luck and some injuries, but I would say in my mind I went in kind of cocky. I was like, I'm good at fantasy football and I watch a lot of football and I like that, but it's nowhere close to like as near and dear to my heart as basketball. We live basketball, and so the fact that that didn't immediately translate to being better, and that I was losing to people who were not watching these late night Minnesota games when they were bad, I was like, that is frustrating for me.
All right, my last topic is one that's betting related, and I think there's so much. It's not really a question. It's more of a prediction, and my prediction is everyone's talking about parity throughout the NBA, right?
Mm-hmm.
15 teams could win it realistically. Everyone's got their big two.
High.
There's not okay.
Yeah,
8 teams can win it.
Yeah.
Everyone's got their big two. There's there's not really big threes anymore. Like the cap rules, the way that the league's been flattened, the amount of talent, how good the shooting is, and the depth on these teams. So like a lot of teams can upset one another. We're talking about parity, 3-point variance, and everything. I'm going to make a prediction that favorites cover at higher rates than the past few years this year. That home court advantage becomes a bigger boost than we've seen in recent years too. I think because I think the stars are going to play more, and I think it comes back to the top tier talent is going to be on the court for more minutes, and I think the NBA is generally the league where we've seen the least parity. We talk, me and you are NFL and NBA guys. In the NFL, half the playoff teams are new every year. In the NBA, 6 out of the 8 are always the same, 7 of the 8 from one year to the next. Like, you're not getting 5 new playoff teams in a conference in the NBA. Like, there's just no way that's happening.
I like that. I like that it coincides with your other theory, so it loops all together. And I like that. I personally hope that happens. Given that we are NFL and NBA guys, we talk about this a lot. We both listen to the Ringer fantasy football podcast, and they bring this up a bunch. Where I forget the guy's name, but some guy who is studying sports across different leagues, different sports, trying to figure out what the biggest predictors are in winning. And it really boiled down to play your best players the most. And it's crazy that something so simple could be the answer. But if stars are playing more this year, and that is a truth, and that is true, I strongly believe that stop getting into the weeds of trying to be too cute and just play your stars. I think that could be a good theory.
I think there's a famous line by Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel that says, "Less thinky, more athlete, take overy."
I love that we're quoting McDaniel. I love the success he's having. As you know, I've renamed my fantasy team to the Miami Dolphins since I have Reek Waddle and Achon, and I sat Salvin this week. I was a little soft. Bad move.
Are there any crazy other things that you just want to throw out before we wrap this up? Things that you like coming this NBA season, I'm looking forward to.
Man, I mean, I'm looking forward to it starting again.
Do the Clippers finally get it done? Do the Clippers finally become a threat?
So that's one of the hardest to answer because they're one of the few teams that's not set in stone yet. Because clearly they want to do something, whether it's Harden or Brogdon. So if they get Harden or Brogdon, can they put it together? I actually still think so. I think in the midst of you saying the changing of the guard, if a fully healthy Kawhi at the start of the playoffs might be the third best player in the NBA on any given night, I know you think I'd probably think I overrate him, but he's so good. Yeah.
So good. And he showed it in those few games that he played last year in the playoffs. All right, let me ask you a few other rapid fire ones. Better chance to figure it the fuck out. DeJounte playing next to Trey or Gobert playing next to Cat?
Oof. Oh, DeJounte. So I think to me, DeJounte playing next to Trey was an issue of maybe their personalities, maybe DeJounte's personality was coming off a weird offseason where he was kind of a villain.
I'd like to
maybe the fact that
Cat and Gobert's personality has to be included in their lack of chemistry too.
I agree with Will, but as much as I dislike Gobert, I don't think he's coming in and being such a problem personality-wise. I think it actually didn't fit stylistically. I think DeJounte kind of does fit with Trey because he doesn't need to dominate the ball offensively. And because he's such a long, good defender, he allows Trey to guard whoever's a smaller or worse of the other two starting guards. So I think because their play styles align more, it's just a matter of time before Quinn Snyder gets them on the same page. I still think DeJounte is good, don't you?
Yeah, I just think he can do more, and I think he wants to do more than what they've been giving him. So let's see if Quinn Snyder, I think he's one of those. I think DeJounte playing next to Trey, and I think generally whoever plays next to Trey kind of fits the mold of exactly what the problem with Ayton was in Phoenix, where these guys are unbelievable. They want the fucking ball. They want the ball in their hands some of the time. They don't want to only do defensive work. Ayton didn't want to only be doing screen and rolls and trying to dunk and then switching on to bigs. He wanted to do more because that wasn't fun for him. So it's is DeJounte just going to get so frustrated constantly playing off ball and trying to be a slasher and a defender?
So to me,
does Quinn get him more involved in a more system? Does Quinn get some load off of Trey and make Trey a movement shooter?
So that's exactly where I was going. So I don't think this is a DeJounte problem because you hit the nail on the head. No matter who it is, you're always going to want the ball. You're never going to get the most out of players who are great than just saying sit in the corner. Never. So the fact Trey right now, because he's such a defensive liability, if you're not running all of your offense through him, it doesn't make any sense to have him on the floor. So it's well, obviously we have to run all the offense through him. But that's not true because if Quinn, and you alluded to this, and maybe this will happen, if Quinn turns Trey, some percentage of Steph Curry, where now whether the ball's in DeJounte's hands, Bog's hands, whoever, you can actually, excuse me, you can actually get value out of Trey still. Now, okay, we have a real offense. We can leave him on the floor. DeJounte is happy. They both get involved. The ball moves more freely. If that happens, I don't think the Hawks are there yet. But if that happens, the Hawks are good then. Actually good.
Do the Heat like stay
Big step
afloat,
back,
or is
right?
this the
Big
Heat
step
where
back.
big step back? This is the year where they're truly an 8 seed and just an easy out in the playoffs.
Yeah, who knows? Because once you get to the playoff, the Heat do something really unique in that you can only call one foul a possession, and not even that because they let you foul so much. So the Heat will foul 100 times what other teams will foul total. So they get to play much, much better defense. It's a wild and great strategy. Call it Heat culture, and I like the Heat. I think that they're a team that's better for the playoffs, but they're gonna be bad and forgotten about in the regular season, and people aren't gonna say, my feed left out a little bit. People aren't going to say, look, this happens every year. They're going to be fine in the playoffs because remember when they got the 1 seed and people were counting them out? Like, again, things move fast in the NBA. And when they don't look good in the regular season, people are going to say the same thing. The Heat are done for. And we won't know to the playoffs because they're built for that.
More likely to make a big trade, the Toronto Raptors with the Siakam OG group or the Chicago Bulls with Levine DeRozan? Did you hear me?
Oh man! So the Chicago Bulls have been the more adamant of the two that they're standing pat. Yeah, can you not hear me?
No, I did. I just we have a slight delay.
You hear me? Okay, great. Yeah. So look, I think the Chicago Bulls are the ones who, from an organizational standpoint, had the most adamantly, we're sticking with who we have. Levine said he's staying, all that. I just think it makes less sense for them to stick with who they have, given what's happened with Lonzo and the way they tried to build. They should now be rebuilding. I know that's depressing from like a fan base perspective and the fact that they were supposed to be this new age team if Lonzo was there and everything panned out. But because it didn't, they should move on. But they've been more adamant. And so maybe I'll believe Toronto when they've been sort of showing us what they mean when they haven't Siakam, even though he's said a bunch, I only want to live in Toronto. They have not said the same. And clearly they've made it known they sort of want to build around Scotty, and they're kind of similar. So I think that it should be the Bulls, but it'll probably be the Raptors.
Last one. Both teams in your backyard, AV, the Knicks and the Nets, both New York teams are said to be positioned to acquire a big name should the Cats, God forbid Embiid, I think that one's way too far out. It looks like Giannis is now off the table, but those are the teams commonly linked. Donovan Mitchell's name, Dame was floated for a lot of Nets stuff. These two New York teams are often floated whenever a big name player comes up. Which New York team is better situated to bring in a star?
New Jersey, and it's not because that I think the Knicks, and I know I'm a Knicks hater. It's not because I don't think the Knicks are in a good position to add a star and be a good team. It's because for whatever reason, and I'll name some of them, the Nets are the more desirable destination. There's a reason that it came out that once Dame was sort of backing down from Miami only, that the Nets were on his list. Like a lot of these other players want to go play for the Nets. They respect Jacque Vaughn as a coach. They love playing alongside guys like Michael Bridges and Cam, where they can sort of be the personality, the star, and these guys are just gonna defend, play every night, still contribute offensively. Like that's a dream. I don't think the Knicks are bad in that they could add a third star and make a great run. It's crazy to say it's less desirable, don't you think?
Ooh, no, it's more desirable because anytime you actually go to a game in the Garden or go to a game at Barclays, it is so much different. So if you win in Manhattan, it is so much different than winning in Brooklyn. So the I guess more desirable from a basketball perspective, Nets, more desirable from a day-to-day lifestyle standpoint, Nets. Their facilities are the best in the world. They have a practice court underneath the court at Barclays. They have the new facility in Coney Island. Like their stuff is incredible. It's better than being underneath Penn Station and in the Westchester near the ice hockey rink, which is where the Knicks practice. Like the Nets have better stuff, better players to pair with. I agree. But the allure of if you actually get it done in MSG, it just looms too bright for me that it's a trick question. It's a semantics question with how you're interpreting the word choice. AV is frozener than a bug on my screen. All right, AV.
Yeah, I just
La-
shot you a text. That was a little, yeah.
All right, last topic before we get out of here. What are you most looking forward to at the wedding?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping some people make fun of your brother because I only gave me 2 minutes to speak, and I know what he wants, so I'm giving him some straight lovey-dovey. So it's not gonna be me, but there's just maybe more ammo to clown a groom at their wedding than any wedding I've ever been to. So I hope that some people take those shots. I don't know who it's gonna be though. I think we might need Howie to come out with some surprise bangers. Give us some childhood
I'm
tidbits.
really, I really am offended by the lack of faith that it's going to be me. I'm going to quickly read to you my text messages with my soon-to-be sister-in-law right now. You ready? I get, hi, it's
Yeah.
Alexa Epstein. Can't wait to see you next weekend. You're responsible for making sure I don't trip down the aisle. I said, no prob. I'm great at walking slow. It's my specialty. She said, haha, we'll crush it. I heard we're the same person and we both roast the shit out of Evan and Evan. We'll have the best weekend and we have each other's backs. My response is, in conjunction to what you just said, there's too much ammo. I go, they're too easy of targets, just so much to make fun of. So AV, I will be filling the role of roasting Sir Evan Fiddle. I will see
I
you
love it.
in 5 days. I will be back on the FBI stream on Saturday with Adam King. Thank you all for tuning in. Look forward to a bunch more NBA shows, and I'll be joined by AV for a ton of them. Austen, thank you for the time, as always.
You just listened to another episode from the Fantasy Basketball International Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us. And for more information about joining our community, please check out our website at fbibasketball.com.